when I say that the chylomicron must be the richest type of lipoprotein. I just absorb it from my food. Do you agree? Okay. So it must be so rich in my cholesterol and my triglycerides. You understand, everybody? Okay. So then, see, follow this arrow. Look at, in chylomicron form, this was your lacteals. It got absorbed. You follow? Then remember, it eventually drains in my bloodstream, the subclavian vein, right? Then it gets dumped in my blood. Okay? You follow? Everybody? So so now it's gonna be traveling to my body, right? Now it's present in my blood. The heart will pump it to the rest of the body. What's going on with this chylomicron? It's going to be picked up by my cells, the lipoprotein lipase, right? Because they're going to be stored inside the cells, especially your adipose tissue. Can you picture? Again, my GI tract absorbed it, right, in the lymph, and while it's in the lymph, it's converted to chylomicron, right? And then remember, the lymph eventually gets emptied into your cardiovascular system. So when the heart pumps this chylomicron will be picked up by my adipose. So lipoprotein, see, lipoprotein lipase will remove the lipids from the chylomicrons. So where is it going to go? It's going to be stored. That's the function of fat. It's stored. That's how it ends up in my belly. Okay? You understand? So next step, look at this one. That is next going to go to the liver. When it gets to the liver, it doesn't look like chylomicron anymore. Do you agree? Right? Because I have unloaded. What is the stored fat? Which one of the two is the stored fat in adipose? Triglyceride, right? This is the one that we burn. Remember? What do you burn for energy? This one, not this one. Right. So once it gets to the liver, it's going to have less triglycerides. When it leaves the liver, it doesn't look like chylomicron anymore. It looks like VLDL. Okay? It will look like VLDL. So you have unloaded your triglyceride, okay, but not cholesterol. The cholesterol is always going to be used by your liver. It's your liver that uses that to make bile, to make your vitamin D, to make your hormones. That's the purpose of that cholesterol, okay? So we're going to say 2.5 checks for the cholesterol right here because it's being used by my liver. So look at what's going to happen. Again, lipoprotein lipase, take away triglycerides again to be stored in my adipose. So you see, you always store it. So another round trip, make another stop at the liver, and what's left is called LDL. When it gets spit out, now you call it LDL. Okay? And this LDL will have fairly large amounts of cholesterol, and the triglycerides have been stored now in my adipose tissue. See? That's why LDL is called the bad cholesterol. At the same time, if you look at this slide, look at this part right here. The liver makes empty HDL shells. So this HDL, the reason why it's called good cholesterol, it's an empty shell that your liver makes. And the purpose of this one is to take or get the cholesterol that's in the LDL and deliver it back to the liver. Instead of this LDL just circulating and carrying that cholesterol all over the body. You understand this slide? Mm-hmm. If you keep on reading this one, number 1, number 2, number 3, you will understand it. One more time. I just ate, right? I just ate. Where's that fat going? In the lymph. In the lymph is where it gets converted to lipoprotein. What do you call it, lipoprotein? Chylomicron. what's it going to do? What is going to happen to that chylomicron? It's going to be dumped into the blood. And then the heart will pump it, and your adipose tissue will grab the triglycerides. That's what adipose stores, right? It stores triglycerides. So when it goes to the liver, it's no longer chylomicron. What will be spit out is called VLDL, where triglyceride is going down, but cholesterol is still up. Then you go make another round trip. Your adipose will store the triglyceride again. When it goes back to the liver, it spits out. It's called LDL, where most of the triglyceride has been stored in your adipose. But cholesterol is still there because you don't store the cholesterol. It's meant to be used by your liver. Your liver will use it to make your vitamin D, to make your estrogen, your progesterone, your bile, right? All your fat soluble, it's the liver that does that. So at the same time, the liver makes HDL, which is what you call an empty shell. What is the purpose of that HDL? It goes in the blood and it grabs the cholesterol from the LDL to transport it to the liver. Now, I want to talk about liver failure. That's right. Did anyone do their Dear Liver diary? I told you to write a Dear Liver. Today, I was good to you. You didn't do your Dear Liver diary, right? No. You should go to confession. Okay, look at. You know that when we have liver problems, like with alcoholism, isn't it that have you heard of fatty liver? Have you heard of this one?
Mm-hmm.
Fatty liver is the first sign of liver failure. Why is it the liver becomes fatty? Because it's not. Look at all of this. If you look at this slide, look at all of these lipoproteins. The liver is the key to process them. If the liver is failing, the fat stops here and it becomes fatty. Do you understand now this term? You see the many important functions of the liver.
So
It stores glycogen.
Processes the LDL to be sent to the adipose. I'm confused about what the liver does with all those things.
What the liver does. The liver
it
is
produces VLDLs. But
yes.
then what happens to the HDL?
It's the main processing site. What happens to the what?
The HDL and the LDL. What happens to that in the liver?
These are just you can think of them as transportation, and the HDL picks up the cholesterol from the LDL and it returns it, and it returns it to the liver. It returns it to the liver, and that's the one that the liver uses to make your bile. And the cholesterol you cannot burn. And the problem is, and that's why when we have cholesterol problems, they don't advise exercise. You have to take medication or you watch your diet. You can't burn it. You can burn your fats, your adipose. That's what you can solve. If you have high triglyceride, you can solve that problem with exercise, but not this one. Do you understand this part?
Look, I have a question. So you can't change your LDL even if you raise your HDL because it's empty. Would that work to lower?
If you raise your HDL, can you lower your LDL? That's a very good question. If you raise your HDL, you are lowering the cholesterol in from your LDL. But a lot of times, if you raise your HDL, it just automatically lowers the LDL. And the reason is because the HDL is picking up this one. So it's in effect, you're emptying the LDL. So that's a very good question.
Why are they, I mean, I guess it has to do with the pharmaceutical company, but it seems like the age is lowering the amount of men especially that are taking the statin drugs for their cholesterol. It just seems like it's going lower and lower. People that come in are in their 30s.
Younger and younger.
Yeah.
They're in their teens.
So
I put my teens on statins
yeah,
now.
and then a lot of people are having allergies to them. So is it just because of what all the cholesterol does in your body that they are reacting when they take them?
The statins, the cholesterol lowering drugs?
drugs, they're developing allergies
A lot
to
of
those
people are,
statins.
they're allergic to them. They take them and they have allergies. There's a lot of people who can't take them because
Oh, because there's a lot of foods that don't agree with these statins. So
Mhm.
once you're on them, you better watch. A lot of the foods that fight with them. So I think one of those foods that fight with
Grapefruit.
statins. Yes. So
That's the biggest one.
maybe that's why they say they're
My
allergic.
husband had bananas
It's just very
and
sad that
spinach.
it's younger and younger and younger.
Well, once you have the fatty liver, can you decrease that if you decrease
That's
your
a very good
cholesterol?
question. Yes, you're not. It's just beginning liver failure. It's not completely failed liver or dead liver or what do you call that. It's just beginning. So if you
You can-
behave in your diet, right, with patients and they take their medication, I bet you this because it regenerates. It's one of those that can replace itself, right? It's not muscle, so it can still replace itself.
So
But yes,
when people have hepatitis C, that's one of the beginning stages of
Yes.
the fatty liver.
Yes.
What does the hepatitis C do in the liver that makes it?
it kills the hepatocytes.
Okay.
It's a virus that kills the hepatocytes.
And then the fatty liver is one of the first signs with it.
Yes, and then after that, what's the next cirrhosis, which is hardening of the liver? Then that's when the liver is no longer functioning for them. And see what happens if your liver fails, you will have problems with fat metabolism, right? They will circulate in your blood because the liver is the key. It's the main stop for all of this to be processed. Okay, it's all, just think of it. I guess, Lena, the best way, or maybe an easy way to understand this is where all those cars are waiting. So the first car, Mark, and then the next car, they just move from one car to the next. When they leave here, they ride now the VLDL car, then they go out. Then when they leave, it's just different kinds, models of cars. Or maybe I'm confusing you. I don't know how to but this slide, I think, delete what I just said. Just try to read this one by one. I bet you it will help you. Okay? So just look at it. Do you, okay? So now that we know how it circulates in the body, we're going to look at what will happen once it enters the cell. Okay? First of all, don't forget that your fats, do you remember how your fats look like? We're looking at the free fatty acids now, right? That's what will give us energy, right? The triglycerides and the basic building blocks are the free fatty acids. So look at these free fatty acids. They are long chain fats. Remember, they are 18 to 20 carbon atoms long. They're very long. So your glucose, normally the glucose is just a 6 carbon atom long, but your free fatty acids are 18 to 20 carbon atoms. So this is a carbon-carbon. And the fatty acids in humans are anywhere from 18 to 20 carbon chains long. That's long, right? Glucose is only 6 carbon molecules. And what did we say? There's two problems here. Number one problem is you don't have an enzyme in the cytoplasm that can burn your fats. That's number one. So you really have no choice but to send this fat. Do you agree? There is no choice but to send this fat to the mitochondria. Do you agree? Okay? So, two problems. Your fatty acids, very long. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're long, okay? And the first problem is you don't have enzymes in the cytoplasm to break that down, to give you energy. And number two, the only way to burn that is in the mitochondria, the Krebs cycle and electron transport. But this one can only accept what? Acetyl-CoA. Remember, that's why you needed to highlight that in your notes. So, the first metabolism is called beta oxidation. In the cytoplasm, okay,
What did you say? The only way to burn it is where?
in the mitochondria, right? You can't burn it in the cytoplasm.
Okay. And the first step of what?
It's called beta oxidation.
And what is
And
it? The
fat
first step?
metabolism.
Oh, fat metabolism. Okay.
So this in any carbon chain, the last carbon is always the alpha, then this is the beta. So beta oxidation means you break it down 2 carbon atoms at a time. So this becomes the alpha and the beta, you break it here, alpha beta, you break it here, alpha beta break, alpha beta break, alpha beta break, alpha beta break, break. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have acetyl-CoA, right? Yes, because acetyl-CoA is 2 carbon atoms. Okay? There's a problem that you encounter. With this, all of this acetyl-CoA forms, I use the example of the bathroom, right? When the bathroom is full, what do? You stand and wait for your turn. So as all of these are waiting for their turn, there is always an event that happens where you're forming ketone bodies, where 2 of these 2 carbon forms, they combine to form ketone bodies. It's too much of them. See? They have to wait for their turn. The Krebs cycle. So as they're waiting, some of them will talk to each other, like Match.com, they meet, they hook up and form ketone bodies. So that is the danger of fat metabolism. What do they call it? South Beach diet, whatever. Atkins diet, right? There was the Atkins diet. I remember we used to always counsel our patients. You will go into ketosis. And this is what you mean by ketosis. And is ketosis dangerous? Yes, because it causes increased acidic conditions in the body. Right? And acidosis is not good. It can affect personality problems. It's good if it's just personality, right? But it will affect everything. Acidosis can affect muscle activity, can affect heart health. How can the heart function properly if you're in acidosis? Do you understand this question? You understand this slide? Again, I have the fatty acids. We learned how they enter the cell, right? Through lipoprotein processing. Now that they enter the cell, they're 18 to 20 carbons long. That's the problem is I have to convert it to acetyl-CoA. How do I do that? Beta oxidation. So there you go. I break it down 2 carbon atoms at a time. I remember asking this in the test, right? What is the process for fat? It's called beta oxidation, something like that. So what's the danger for fat? It's called ketosis. There's a different danger for amino acid, right? What do you mean by ketosis? You're building up all these ketone bodies. You see acetone, the fruity odor in diabetics? See, right? Because diabetics are not able to use their sugar, right? So they have no choice. They have to use the fat. And that's what's going on. As these are waiting for their turn, some of them will combine. You form this. But did you get energy? Yes. So, still, what are the breakdown products? If it's glucose metabolism or fat metabolism, the breakdown product is still this one, right? Carbon dioxide plus water plus ATP plus heat. There is no other breakdown product for any nutrient breakdown except this one. Because there's only one Krebs cycle or electron transport chain in the mitochondria. That's where you send all these nutrients. Do you understand fat? Now we're going to look at our amino acids. Now you can explain to your friends.
You said there was 2 steps of fat metabolism, and the first step was the beta oxidation.
Beta oxidation.
What's the second one?
This one, Krebs cycle.
Oh, this is Krebs cycle.
Now let's look at our amino acids. It entered my cell, and I'm going to use it for energy. First of all, we need to remember that we really do not use amino acids for energy. That's not what they're there for. They are meant to be used as building blocks for whatever proteins we need. Let's say keratin, collagen, enzymes, hormones, mucus secretion, sweat, everything. Neurotransmitters. But if we want to burn it for energy, we still can. If you remember how amino acids look like, okay? So remember how amino acids are there. Do you see? There's my acetyl-CoA, right? I can still use this. But remember, always think it has to be converted to acetyl-CoA. In this amino acid form, useless. So what does the mitochondria have to do? You have to get rid of what? That amino group. So the first step in amino acid metabolism is what you call deamination. You have to deaminate it. You have to take away that ammonia. Why? Because you're not a bacteria, right? Bacteria can use that ammonia, no problem. But we are not, we are humans. Humans have no enzymes to process that amino group. That's the problem. Maybe in your next, whatever, maybe we can become similar to bacteria, but for now, all humans do not have enzymes. We don't have the capacity to process the ammonia. So, what's the first step for fat? Beta oxidation. What's the first step for amino acids? Deamination. Take away that amino group. But that ammonia is dangerous, isn't it? Isn't it toxic? Ammonia is toxic. So, look at what the liver does. Again, the liver. You see how important the liver is? Look at what the liver will do. Because it's toxic, the liver immediately will have to convert it to what? Urea. And where is that urea? There it is. Where is the urea going to go? PP. I think that's where the word urine came from. Okay? So now, I can use this, right? When I take that out, do you remember how that amino acid looked like? So when I take that out, I can use it. I can send it to the Krebs cycle. These are all different amino acids. I can send it and use it for energy. So I want you, please, to focus on this one. This, you need to explain to your friends who do protein shakes and all that stuff, right? One of the side effects of protein diet or high protein diet is dehydration. It's an automatic thing. The thing we need to realize about our body, this is an automatic thing. As long as you have healthy liver and healthy kidneys, they're there. God gave us our kidneys and our liver to automatically help us with whatever we put in our body. So like detoxifying our drugs, even with this one, right? When we do amino acid metabolism, you take away this ammonia, the liver automatically converts it to urea and automatically sends it to the kidney. And the kidney has to get rid of that. And what does the kidney need? It needs water, you see? So people with protein metabolism, that's why you have to tell them, you need to drink water. Why? You're getting dehydrated. You're going to get dehydrated. You cannot control it. Your kidney will just want to get rid of it. They are dynamic structures in the body. It's an automatic thing, right? We talked about parathyroid, calcitonin. It automatically controls the calcium in the blood. These are all automatic. So it will just keep on grabbing the water to empty you of this toxic urea, which came from your protein metabolism. Then you will become dehydrated. And that's not good, isn't it? Dehydration is not good. Do you understand this slide? So, after you deaminate it, you now can use it, right? It's now in acetyl-CoA form. See? Everything has to be converted to acetyl-CoA form. So there's your crossroads. Okay? Don't forget acetyl-CoA. So I like this. I think the only thing you need to add in this slide is here the term deamination to know what this means, right? Amino acid deamination, then you can send it to the Krebs cycle. For the fats, the only thing you need to add is beta oxidation. But look at, the only way to use them is acetyl-CoA form. So what's the breakdown products for protein metabolism? It's the same. Carbon dioxide plus water plus ATP plus heat. How about this one? This one, the same for all of them. You see the dangers for this or this, right? You see the danger. Really, the best is this one, right? Okay? So, the daily metabolic cycle of the individual, of every individual, we always vacillate between the absorptive state and the post-absorptive state. Absorptive state meaning you just ate. I like this slide better, it's easier. So during the absorptive state where you just ate, what is the predominant thing? When you just ate, it's like it's time of plenty. You have lots and lots of nutrients, right? So during the absorptive state, what's going on? I know glycogenesis is going on, all of this. You know this already. But I want you to remember this. I asked this in the test. Does it make sense? In the absorptive state, insulin must be the dominant hormone, right? Because you just ate. And in the post-absorptive state, glucagon must be the dominant hormone. This is in between meals. What will tide me over? So the hope is you use this one or even fats, both of them not as dangerous as if you start using the proteins. We're going to look at this when we talk about our acid-base balance. Okay? So the last part of this chapter talks about thermoregulation. What do you say?
Glucagon.
Glucagon, yes. Glucagon is the predominant hormone in the post-absorptive state. It's the one that tides you over in between meals. The last part of this chapter talks about thermoregulation. Do you agree that it is very important to be in temperature balance? Do you agree?
Yes.
If your temperature goes up, hyperthermia, you can die from hyperthermia, right? You can go into seizure. When you increase the temperature, you increase the metabolism of every cell. You go into hyper, everything. You can start cooking. You go into seizure. Hypothermia, you slow down. You may even stop your heart rate. You can die. So extremes is not good. So it's important for our body to be within normal temperature always. The brain does that for us. The hypothalamus is the one that makes sure we're always in normal body temperature. It has like a sensor to make sure we're always under balance. So this chapter ends with this one. Now, when you look at the nutrition guide pyramid, when you pick up nutrition, it's another class that I teach. But this one is telling you any kind of nutrition. We'll talk about all of these nutrients, where you get your nutrients, and why do you use them. And now you're understanding the main reason we use them is because so we can use it for energy. This is just this slide includes a person doing activity on top of the daily metabolism. So if you're going to do any additional exercise, you want to adjust your nutrients because these are the ones that will power your physical activity. Okay? Speaking of nutrition and metabolism, I know that a lot of how do you know that you are in your optimum weight or optimum physical health? We always we use this
Your
BMI,
BMI.
right? A lot of people use this BMI. Do I have enough fat? Do I have too much fat? Why is this one of the indicators they use? You know that this one talks about weight per height, right? So if and you remember, so I just want to know why is it that when I have a high BMI, normally the healthy BMI is 18.5 to 24.9, isn't it? And then if it's over 25, then that's overweight, and if it's below, you're underweight. And if it's higher than when you have a high BMI, they always equate that to too much fat in the body. The question is why? So if you look at these two parameters, BMI talks about weight per height in meters squared, weight in kilograms. So if you are, and you look at what are the nutrients? So you look at glucose, you look at your fats, and you look at your proteins. You remember that glucose, what is the fate of glucose? You use it for energy, right? And some of it you store as glycogen. And where do we store glucose? We store it in our muscle, right? And our liver. Those are the two areas in the body where they are stored. Proteins, you do not use it for energy right away. You store it immediately in your adipose, right? Your fats, you don't store. There is no stored, sorry, not fats,
Your
proteins.
proteins.
There is no stored proteins. Now, if I look at this, where you store, because that's the one that gives me, because this one I'm going to burn. So my weight must be from where I store. This lends to my increased weight. Which of the two storage forms is unlimited? The fat, right? The adipose, I can increase the adipose in the body. Whereas this one can be full, right? That's what happens to glucose, right? If we eat too much carbs, right? The excess carbs will be stored here, and then the excess will be stored as fat, right? And with fat, it's stored immediately as fat. So you understand now why if you have a high BMI, they always equate that to too much fat. If you are heavier for the height that you have, they always equate that to too much fat. But this is very deceiving, especially for athletes, okay? So in addition to BMI, they also include waist measurement and body fat distribution. So waist circumference over 38 inches for females and over 40 inches for males, and also the body fat distribution. It's this belly fat that is more. The only reason we worry about BMI is the risk that is associated with it. Right? High BMI carries the risk of cardiovascular problems, and that risk depends on the fact they say that they did a study that this belly fat is the one that carries a higher risk of cardiovascular problems than the fat that females usually store it. With females, we usually store it here, right? And up here.
I wish.
So, well, there's also different kinds of reason or causes for fat retention. A lot of times, drugs. For taking steroids, let's say we have allergies, severe allergies. Like my best friend is a heart transplant recipient. So she has no choice but to take all the steroids to prevent rejection. So but that's the main reason. In case it comes out in the test, and if I ask you, explain why BMI, increased BMI, in general means excess fat. You just look at it in terms of how do we store it. And if you look at this picture, because adipose is the one that can grow, quote unquote, that's the one. If we're heavier for our height, usually it's because of excess BMI. Okay? So now we have your minerals, your vitamins. We're going to talk about these minerals, these electrolytes. We know that we need them. Don't forget, we don't get energy from them, right? Energy in terms of calories. They are necessary for metabolism. They are necessary for, let's say, nerve transmission, muscle activity, all of that. But am I eating them so that I can get energy from them? No. I'm eating them because of the other cellular processes that they are needed for. Okay? Vitamins. And we know the function of the different vitamins, right? But a lot of these vitamins, if you look, each and every one of these vitamins, if you look closely, if you look at a nutrition book, each and every vitamin is necessary for metabolism. You know this Krebs cycle chain over here? There's all of those vitamins, you can trace them to their health or their importance, their function in all of these Krebs cycle, in every Krebs cycle chain. Okay? So we finished all of this nutrition metabolism. I think what I would like for you to do is to take a break. So go home, have a good weekend.